Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Planning Committee. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend the recording of the meeting should this be necessary to maintain the proper running of the meeting. This is a meeting of the Council which is held in public. It is not a public meeting. Please can all mobile devices be switched to off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Anyone else intending to film or audio record any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disrupt the meeting. And please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. Should the fire alarm sound, please leave by the nearest exit and meet by Wilkinson's. Officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Our procedure for each item will be that the planning officer will present their report and committee members will ask any points of clarification. Then the meeting will be taken out of session to allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on a particular application to do so. Each person will be invited to come forward to the table and in the front of the public seating area, and they will be given 3 minutes to give their views. Once all those comments have been given, the meeting will then continue for members of the committee to discuss the application and to reach a decision. No further comments may be made by members of the public once the meeting has been reconvened. Thank you very much. Right, if we move on to item 1 of the agenda, which is apologies for absence.
Yes, we've got apologies from Councillor Schrader, who's being substituted by Councillor Morris, Councillor Harrison's being substituted by Councillor McGeorge, and Councillor A. Brown substituted by Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest and lobbying. Anyone wishing to make declarations? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm declaring an interest in terms of I'm one of the ward councillors, and I've also been lobbied.
Councillor Sargent.
I declare an interest in item. I declare an interest in item 4, Chairman. I've been lobbied.
Thank you, Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been lobbied on item 4.
Councillor Brookman.
Thanks, Chair. I've been lobbied on item 4.
Councillor Myers.
Yeah, thank you. Been lobbied on item 4.
And I've been lobbied on item 5. Sorry, 4 and 5. Any other declarations? No. Okay, let's move on then to minutes. I've got 2 sets of minutes for us to approve. The okay, so we've got the minutes from Wednesday the 13th of December. Can I have a show of hands if you're in favour of those minutes, please? Thank you. Abstentions? Lovely, thank you. Have you got the numbers? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 4 on the agenda, and I'm going to hand over to Ms Cook.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application for the redevelopment of the site to provide 99 residential dwellings, Class C3 use, the provision of strategic landscape, new vehicular and pedestrian access routes and associated infrastructure. And the applicant is David Wilson Homes. The site is located on the eastern side of Southend Road, south of and immediately to the rear of Highfield Road and to the north of Cox's Farm Road in Great Bursted, Billericay. The site wraps around 3 properties located on the eastern side of Southend Road. Furthest to the north is Grimshill Farmhouse, which is a Grade 2 listed building. The middle property, or the next sort of stepping down on the plan, heading south, is the Thatched Cottage, which is a non-designated heritage asset. And furthest to the south is Southend Farmhouse, a Grade 2 listed building. Just to confirm that the former listed barn to the northeast of Southend Farmhouse was burnt down and no new building has been constructed. The site is located within the Greenbelt and is 8.1 hectares in size. It's located within Flood Zone 1, which is the lowest risk of flooding. This slide shows the aerial image of the site, which predominantly consists of grass fields broken up by established field boundaries. The site does not comprise of any agricultural land. An existing stream, which is proposed to be retained and enhanced, runs through the site from a north-south direction, and you can see that by the sort of fairly heavy wooded area that runs in that direction. Land levels also drop in this direction from north to south, and direct residents in Highfield Road are located in an elevated position, with the rear of these properties on the southern side of the road facing south over the application site. There is an existing field access between residential properties in Highfield Road, which is proposed to provide pedestrian access only to the site. In terms of the proposed allotment position, you can just see that on the north western corner there, there's an existing site access which is proposed to be retained. The site also incorporates a 1980 chalet bungalow to the south of Southend Farmhouse, which is proposed to be demolished. I'll just point that out here if you can see the cursor, so that's in that area. Further south and to the junction of Southend Road and Cox's Farm Road is a Fairview site, which is here. This falls outside of the application site itself, and permission was granted here back in May 2023 for a 76-bed care home. Opposite the site, along Cox's Farm Road, is St Peter's Primary School. Broadly opposite this is a new pedestrian access to the site is to be proposed. The next slide shows the start of the site photographs. So the existing access to the site furthest north and on the eastern side of Southend Road will continue to be provided to the proposed allotments only. So that is the picture in the top left-hand corner of the screen there, you can see. So that's facing east-northeast direction. The other gated access, so the bottom picture there, is an existing field access with a substation to the rear, and these are the properties in Highfield Road. The top left are views as you enter the site from Cox's Farm Road. So it's the southern section of the site, furthest south, which has heavy tree and hedge screening, and is a more enclosed area of the site. The bottom left shows views through the site as you walk through. There's an existing telecoms mast along the central eastern boundary to remain, and the existing redundant and abandoned cars that are located both within the central section of the site and to the rear of Southend Farmhouse, there you can see. There you can see on the left-hand side some more pictures of the redundant cars, and then the larger right-hand side picture of the views where the site opens up. You can see the rear boundaries of property in Highfield Road, the extent of the grass fields, and also the strong green boundary along the left-hand side of the photo, which runs along the existing stream and watercourse. The third lot of photographs, the right is the watercourse there. It shows the approximate position of the new access which were formed over it, and that runs broadly through the centre of the site and off Southend Road. On the left-hand side is one of the existing mature oak trees to be retained, and that is located to the rear of Grimshill Farmhouse to the northwest of the site. So these photographs show the views from the 3 different heritage assets that I pointed out before. So the top photographs there are views of Elms Cottages, which is also now known as Grimshill Farmhouse. So there you can see views of Elms Cottages from Southend Road and from the northern end of the site.
Yes, Councillor Rimmer.
Is it possible to zoom in on those pictures because they are rather small and there's all crammed in like that and not even really taking up the screen in a way that maximises them, if you see what I mean? There's so much white space as well. I don't know if we can just zoom into each of those pictures because this was a crucial aspect I was asking about in the technical questions.
Is that any better, Councillor Rimmer?
Yes.
I'll just scroll down and I'll enlarge the second set of pictures. So the bottom set of photographs are the view of the thatched cottage from Southend Road, the picture on the left-hand side, and viewed from the eastern boundary of, so the view, the second photograph on the right is the view from the eastern boundary of the actual application site itself, looking into the thatched cottages garden. This is the final slide of the views of the heritage asset. So this one shows the views of Southend Farmhouse for Southend Road. That's the picture on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side picture shows views from the central southern section of the site towards Southend Farmhouse facing west. There's a separation distance of 74 metres to development proposed to the north. Significant existing and proposed soft landscaping boundary treatments to remain. There's no development to the rear, as this is where the open space is proposed and the play area only. And to the south is a separation distance of approximately 33 metres. This is no closer than the existing chalet bungalow, which is proposed to be demolished. In terms of proximity to local services, this plan shows just that really. So the first central line shows shops and services and facilities within a 5-minute walking distance, and the outer circle dotted line shows those within a 10-minute walk. So within the 5-minute walking distance we have St Peter's Primary School, the 2 nearby pubs along Southend Road, bus stops on Southend Road, and within 10 minutes walk we have local shops at South Green Surgery and the Junior School, the petrol station, and also access to further bus stops on Outward Common Road to the north and Mill Road to the south. The site is located approximately 1.5 metres from Billericay High Street and is located within a sustainable location. In terms of landscape sensitivity, the Council's outlined landscape appraisals of potential strategic development sites, which is a 2017 document, sets out that the site falls mainly within a lower landscape sensitivity, and this is shown in light purple on the plan, with the majority of the higher landscape sensitivity areas falling outside the site and adjacent to nearby heritage assets, and this is shown within the darker purple areas. The plan before you shows landscape character and is taken again from the 2017 landscape appraisals document. The plans show the areas for potential development in light brown, key vegetation and hedgerows to be retained in green, the existing watercourse shown in blue, as I said before, it heads north-south, key connections, which are yellow areas or arrows. You can see there to the north and immediately to the south, and the existing telecoms mark cross, which is a black cross here. Hopefully you can just see that there. The proposed development is broadly consistent with this, however the development area potential has been reduced to deal with the necessary SUS requirements. So in terms of the proposed development, this slide sets out what is being proposed, so it gives you a breakdown there of the number of units, so 99 dwellings, all of which would be semi and detached properties, and that also includes 4 bungalows. The units themselves would be 4 1-bed units, 23 2-beds, 24 3-beds, 31 4-beds and 7 5-bed properties. Provision of 37% affordable housing is proposed, which equates to 36 houses. The scheme itself is a low density scheme at 28.85 dwellings per hectare. New allotments are proposed along with central pedestrian and a cycle green corridor which connects to Highfield Road and Cox's Farm Road. Pedestrian walkways, wooded areas, SUS attenuation basins, wildflower planting, rain gardens, street trees, foraging areas and ornamental gardens are proposed, which would be used as an ecological and education zone. New play areas are also proposed, which includes 3 local areas of play and 1 local equipped area of play. 3 new vehicular accesses off Southend Road are also proposed, along with 222 car parking spaces across the scheme. That includes 25 visitor parking spaces. All dwelling houses would have electric vehicle charging and secure cycle parking. I'll show you these on the plan further on as well, just to show where they are going to be sited. Also, the development includes improvements to pedestrian crossing facilities on Cox's Farm Road and new raised pedestrian table crossings, and 2 uncontrolled dropped curb pedestrian crossing points would also be proposed on Southend Road. In terms of the housing mix, the table on top left sets out the overall mix of dwellings there, which we've run through, and the table in the bottom right sets out the proposed affordable housing mix, so 37% overall. Out of the 36 dwellings to be affordable, 25 of these would be affordable rent and 11 would be shared ownership, so that's a 69% and a 31% ratio. The applicant has been having ongoing discussions with SEMPRA with regard to the affordable housing on the site. As I said before, the scheme would deliver 37% affordable housing, which is in excess of the council's affordable housing policy. This is made up of 31% split, and the remaining 31% split between the 70% or 69% affordable rent and the 31% shared ownership. The remaining 6% would be flexible, but the developer has advised that this will be likely to be made up of discount market units. However, the Section 106 agreement will secure 37% affordable housing in perpetuity. The next slide highlights NPPF paragraph 11, which sets out the presumption in favour of development and the requirement to grant planning permission unless the application of Greenbelt policies provide a clear reason for refusing the development proposed, or any adverse impact of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Inappropriate development shall not be approved except in very special circumstances. The slide also highlights the current 1.85 year housing supply. So this is a proposed site layout plan. Just to point out firstly that the plan has obviously been flipped over. So here you can see Southend Road running along the bottom of the screen. And if I just go through and point out some of the main features which I've run through quickly before. So here we can see the cursor is the existing field access off Highfield Road, which would remain. This would be connected to a proposed pedestrian and cycle access and the new green corridor which would run through the entire centre of the site. And this would run adjacent to the existing watercourse. The design takes a landscape-led approach, and approximately 47% of the site would remain as green infrastructure. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. The proposed allotments are located here, so they access, as I said before, off the existing access on Southend Road. Overall square meterage of allotments is 625 square metres. That will provide 4 new plots, which in total is works out to be 3 half-sized plots and 1 full-sized allotment plot, and a communal tool storage building. A strategy to ensure that the allotments and the green corridor remain open and maintained and retained for public use will be secured via the Section 106 agreement. In terms of other open spaces, as I said before, we pointed out the picture of the mature oak, which is here. You can see there quite a large area of open space would be retained, and a picnic area would be formed around this tree. Open soft landscaping area here would be created. Here you can see the Thatched Cottages garden. This is a well-established ornamental garden which partly will be given over to the application site, and this has been referenced in the report as Valerie's Garden. This would be enhanced to form an ecological and education hub comprising of a woodland classroom, bug hotels, log piles, education boards, bat and bird boxes. Along the eastern boundary of the site, which is along the top of your screen here, a large amount and strip of landscape boundary would be retained. It's approximately 4 metres in width. There's also 3 local areas of play, as I said before, being provided, and 1 local area of play are proposed. Indicative plans have been provided which demonstrate that the play equipment proposed, as described at paragraph 2.3.7 of the report, it gives you an indication of the types of play equipment that will be provided. However, full details could be dealt with a condition, and this is referenced by condition 27. The play area is shown here in this area. There's also a new wooded area to the north-eastern corner of the site. That's at this section here, so backing onto some of the properties in Highfield Road. And this would extend from the existing wooded area, which is just outside of the site, in the top north-eastern corner of the screen. A large area to the southern section of the site here is designated to be a SUDS area, and this will comprise of attenuation basins with wetland, meadow grassland and wildflower planting. It is therefore devoid of any development. Other types of planting, such as herbaceous planting, street trees and raid gardens, are also proposed throughout the site. And further details in respect to trees and soft landscaping can be found at pages 57 to 59 of the agenda. In terms of the access to the dwelling houses, all vehicular access will be from Southend Road only. This is via 3 new access points. Furthest to the north, the first access is here, a first new access. This will provide access to a small cul-de-sac of 7 proposed dwellings. Heading south, you can see the central main access. This will cut over the watercourse and lead to the main development to the rear of the site or along the eastern boundary. And then heading further south, the third new access, which will provide access to another slightly larger area of cul-de-sac properties containing 18 dwellings. And these are all interconnected by proposed walkways around the site. So we've talked about the central green corridor. So this runs all the way directly through, and then it leads through the next to the attenuation areas, leading out onto Cox's Farm Road, opposite the school. The nearest proposed dwelling will be sited some 90 metres away from Cox's Farm Road, given the setback here. In terms of the impact of neighbours, or upon neighbours I should say, a minimum separation distance of 30 metres will be retained between the rear of neighbouring properties in Highfield Road and the side of the nearest proposed dwellings, which are a bungalow, and a 1.5 storey dwellings. The bungalows are a little bit hard to sort of point out on these plans, but they are these 2 pairs of semi-detached properties, so here and here. The property within the site furthest north is the 1.5 storey dwelling. These proposed dwellings will all side on to the existing neighbouring properties, with a minimum separation distance of approximately 5 metres between the proposed dwellings and the rear boundaries of neighbouring properties. These are the nearest proposed dwellings to neighbouring properties, or existing neighbouring occupiers, I should say, and all other dwellings are located well in excess of 30 metres away from the rear of existing neighbouring occupiers in Highfield Road. Permitted development rights have been taken away as well for these properties that I've referenced, which would normally allow for roof alterations and extensions such as dormer windows. So this refers to plots 64 and 81, and these are the 2 dwellings closest to the existing neighbours. And conditions 38 and 39 refer to these. In terms of the proposed highway works, the existing uncontrolled pedestrian crossing facilities will be improved on Cox's Farm Road. This will provide a raised table crossing point and will replace the existing drop curb crossing at the junction of Southend Road and Cox's Farm Road. A further raised table crossing point will be provided at the northern end of the school frontage further along Cox's Farm Road, and the existing footpath to the south of the site, or on the northern side of Cox's Farm Road, will be widened to connect with this. Also, the existing overgrown vegetation along the site boundary will be cut back. 2 additional drop curb pedestrian points will be provided along Southend Road, near to the Duke of York pub, and within the vicinity of the northbound bus stop at the South Green Memorial Hall. The existing footbridge will remain, there's no proposed alterations to that, and these facilities will facilitate access to the western side of Southend Road. The highway crossing points have been considered within the road safety audit that's been submitted with the application, as have all the proposed highway works, including the new vehicular accesses, and have been reviewed by the Highway Authority, who have raised no concerns. In terms of the site's constraints, all ecological mitigation has been dealt with effectively. The landscape-led design, retention of the 4-metre landscape buffer along the eastern boundary, new wooded areas will ensure that dormouse habitats are enhanced and protected, and an outlined dormouse mitigation strategy has been submitted as part of the application. The design of the scheme ensures that the residential gardens are not connected directly to the dormouse habitat. Biodiversity net gain will also incorporate off-site measures, which would be agreed via a Section 106 agreement in combination with Condition 9. Place Services Ecology has been consulted on the application and have raised no objections. Overall, it's considered that a verdant, green and beautiful site will be created. In terms of flooding, this has also been dealt with effectively through the provision of a loose-knit form of development and a large suds area to the south of the site, devoid of development, and this is at the lowest part of the site and away from the nearby school. A significant amount of the site has been given over to address the suds issues and to provide the necessary flood risk mitigation. Essex County Council, as the lead local flood authority, have raised no objections, subject to conditions, and conditions 15 and 18 refer. In terms of noise, at the technical briefing, one of the members raised concerns over noise and the WHO guidelines. Environmental Health have reviewed the submitted residential noise impact assessment and confirmed that the submitted details demonstrate the scheme's compliance and therefore acceptability with WHO guidelines. As mitigation will be secured by condition for rooms facing onto Southend Road of the new houses, Environmental Health have raised no objection. The next slide just shows a few example floor plans of the different types of properties. And there's 15 different house types being proposed. The next 3 slides show CGIs of the proposed dwellings. As you can see, the houses are of a traditional attractive design, materials and appearance, with pitch roofs, some with brick detailing, some with gable protections. In terms of materials, a mixture of red and buff bricks would be proposed, some with light render and hardy plank weatherboarding, and roofs will be tiled red or grey. As I said, mentioned before, 15 different house types are proposed, and there's variations within these of their external materials and finish. And that final slide is of the new play area and the houses that overlook that. The next slide shows a series of significant infrastructure contributions which will be secured via Section 106 if planning permission was granted. These have been informally agreed by the applicant, and they include education, healthcare, employment and skills, sustainable transport, including a new evening bus service provision, local delivery pilot contributions and round contributions, which total £893,103.66. This slide refers to the Greenbelt very special circumstances put forward by the applicant and the weighting put forward by officers, and it's based on recent appeal decisions. It shows the positive and negative aspects of the development in relation to the Greenbelt and keeping paragraph 11 of the NPPF in mind. In terms of the positives, which are set out on the left-hand side, we look at deliverability first. The proposed development would provide a significant amount of market and affordable housing within a 5-year deliverable timeframe. The site is owned by David Wilson Homes, a volume house builder, who have advised that they were fully committed to the scheme, and if planning permission was granted, they would seek to start on site in 2025, with first occupations taking place the same year, with completion envisaged towards the end of 2028. The council's own evidence base also weighs very heavily in favour of the proposal. The proposed landscape and community enhancements carry moderate weight in favour of the proposal. At present, the site is not open to the public and there's no public rights of way running through it. The proposal will open up the site to public use, improving social mobility, and this will allow people to access the watercourse, the proposed Green Link corridor, provide new community allotments, new education areas, foraging trails, play areas and equipment, picnic spots, and an alternative access to St Peter's School away from the main road. Also, the positives that weigh in favour and moderately in favour here would be the proposed highway safety improvements, which I've already discussed, and also to point out the sustainable transport benefits, which are set out on page 39, and these include the new green corridor, which also promotes opportunities for cycle links, the improved pedestrian crossing points on Southend Road and Cox's Farm Road, bus stop infrastructure improvements, including raised tables to improve accessibility onto buses, the provision of real-time displays, a £240,000 financial contribution towards evening bus stop enhancements along the Southend Road, and this would provide an evening service, routing from the site from Billericay Station past the site through Noak Hill to serve the Basildon Enterprise Corridor, Festival Leisure Park, Basildon Town Centre and Basildon Hospital. A contribution towards Cycle Route 7 of the local cycling and infrastructure plan would also be achieved, and this would connect to the Billericay School to the north. The economic, social and environmental benefits of the proposed development also weigh moderately in favour of the development, and these are set out on page 41. In terms of the negatives, these are on the right-hand side of the scheme. The proposal would result in a moderate level of harm to the openness of the Greenbelt. This carries substantial negative weight against the development, as per paragraph 153 of the NPPF. The limited contribution that the site makes in terms of its Greenbelt purposes carries substantial negative weight against the proposed development. Therefore, to conclude, officers consider that the proposed development would have a significant, albeit localised, impact on the openness of this undeveloped Greenbelt site. Therefore, the proposed development, by definition, is inappropriate and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. Within this overall balance, having regard to the discussed factors, national Greenbelt policies do not provide a clear reason for refusing the development. It's considered that very special circumstances put forward significantly and demonstrably outweigh Greenbelt harm. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval, subject to no call-in powers being exercised by the Secretary of State, the completion of a Section 106 agreement, and the conditions set out on pages 81 to 94 of the agenda, together with the additional condition in respect of tree root protection, which is on the update sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Do we have any people wishing to ask questions? I'll take Councillor Blake first.
After I say who's Councillor Blake? Yeah, just a couple of points. Could the officer give me some relevance as to why the picture of the redundant cars were there? Should they be there, in fact, or should they not be there and we should have enforced upon it already? Just as a question. That's the first question, please.
The vehicles have been there for a number of years, so there is no authorised use for those vehicles, but they've been there for more than 10 years. Therefore, the land has got a lawful use for the storage of vehicles.
So for over 10 years, we as a council took no action against some sort of illegal development on the Green Belt. Okay, that's my first point. On the second point, and the other one before obviously going to the major issue, the bus service is what confuses me. We've had this time and time again. What control do the developers over having a bus service? And when can that be removed? How long is it for? And what is evening?
So in terms of the financial contribution, as I said before, that provide an evening bus service past the site and it connects to existing leisure and employment areas. That would pay for 2 buses for a 3-year period to run between those areas that I mentioned before. As I said, that would be secured by the Section 106 agreement.
Yes, Councillor Blake, come back.
When does that 3 years start? Does it start from when the first house starts being built, or when all the houses are built? And what's to stop the bus service taking away that service at any particular time?
Councillor Blake, in terms of the bus service, the service would be procured through Essex County Council Passenger Service Transport Department and secured through a planning obligation. The associated bus improvements would occur at obviously the stops mentioned, and obviously in terms of how long they last for, that would be part of the planning obligation. That is between, and the normal times that that we've had to date in terms of bus routes have been between 3 and 5 years, and that depends on what the I mean, again, it's not a, we're not involved with the local planning authority. That is actually for the passenger transport department to deal with, but those are the 2 timescales that we've had, and it depends on whether, on at what point the transport department think that those bus services will become effective and they will be substantiated on their own. So it depends on how long they think those. It's a matter for the bus companies, not for us. Well, actually, it's for Essex County Council Passenger Transport Department. So it will be either 3 or 5 years, and it's their decisions on when they think those buses will become effective and they will run themselves.
Did you wish to come back, Councillor Blake?
Yeah, I think that basically sums up what my point I was trying to make. The red herrings in the room were the redundant cars that shouldn't be there in the first place, and we should have dealt with many years ago as an authority, and also a bus service which they say is going to happen, and really we have no control over it.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Rimmer?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just on page 19 and 20. We've got quite a lengthy statement from one of our statutory consultees, ECC Place Services Historic Environment, Built Heritage, and in that they've identified. Should I pause a moment? No worries. So page 19 and page 20, ECC Place Services, Historic Environment, Built Heritage, have given their statements, obviously, and identified where the buildings are actually existing, that there would be less than substantial harm, which is actually or legalese for actually harm, and something to be considered. So, and they've said medium level. Now, I think that's quite, that's one of the highest we've seen that come forward. And so I'm just, and we've said that we're removing the cars. Said that the cars are to be removed, and that's what that means that there's now benefit to those listed assets from the cars being removed. Have I read that correctly?
So in terms of the various degrees of substantial harm, obviously there have been evidence in the report. So we're looking at a low scale level of harm to Grimshill Farmhouse. And as you said, a medium, middle level of scale harm to a Fat Cottage, which is the non-Z designated heritage asset, and a low medium scale level of harm to Southend Farmhouse. So in terms of the impact on all of these balanced together, we have to look at the public benefits, and these have been concluded to outweigh the identified harm. And that's set out within paragraph 5.14.13 on page 72.
Councillor Rimmer, do you wish to come back?
Yeah, so again, I'll reiterate. Are we saying that because the cars are being removed, that that's the only thing that we're doing to mitigate that? And also, there was comments made about the materials to be used to be sympathetic to the heritage assets. And that actually there should be less concrete used and less non-traditional material near the assets. Has that been taken into account as well?
Yes, so just coming back to the issue with the cars, and obviously that is a benefit, but it's not just the only public benefit itself. There's a number of benefits there which we've identified on page 72. 5.14.10, and as I've mentioned before, so I probably don't really need to go back over those, but yeah, these are all balanced and, as I said, are considered to outweigh the harm to those assets. In terms of materials that are being proposed, all the plans have gone through Place Services Heritage and also been reviewed internally by the Council's Urban Design Officer. I think, as I said, we're happy with what's being proposed in terms of materials, and from officers' point of view, it's not considered that will detrimentally harm the setting or the designation of the heritage assets themselves.
Councillor Rimmer.
Yeah, I've got points on noise as well, but it's just on this heritage aspect. They're quite clear in here, and even the body of the report is quite clear in saying that by decoupling these particular heritage assets from their normal setting of the agrarian setting, that this is causing harm. And so the only mitigation, and I'm saying mitigation, I'm not talking about benefits here, the only mitigation I can see is the removal of the cars, which probably should have been removed anyway. So I've just come back to the fact, other mitigations in terms of at least trying to make them more sympathetic to the other assets, other mitigations in terms of landscaping, are there other conditions in here that I should be looking at to give weight to that? Because at the moment I've got a very damning report from the heritage officer who makes me think, why isn't this recommended for refusal? I mean, should I ask the questions of noise as well? Just because they're very quick. But on noise, and there's 15 properties, I understand, that are affected by noise, and we've said that we've had an assessment for our environmental health officer in respect of that, and that they're okay with that. I mean, I think my questions at the technical meeting were to do with what is the WHO standard, over what time frame, because these 15 properties were down in the report as highly affected by the noise, and that's 15 out of 99 is quite a significant number in terms of percentage wise, and it brings the layout of the scheme into question, because one wonders, what if you've got 15 properties in a scheme all near the road, why didn't you set them further back from the road so these people can open their windows during a hot summer's evening?
Have you got any more questions for later on, after this one's answered, Councillor?
Sorry, Councillor Morris. Councillor Rimmer, can I just deal with a point on the balance approach to how you deal with listed assets? The point of seeking advice on heritage assets is the fact that they produce information with regard to the asset itself, and the council in its report, the officers in their report, have not stated the fact that there won't be a change to the setting of the listed buildings. There is. The buildings have sat for, well, especially the non-heritage asset, has sat for a period of time in an open setting, and by adding additional development to that setting will change, and that is accepted. And in that long response from Place Services, at the end it says, to conclude, the proposals would fail to preserve the special interests of listed buildings contrary to section 66 of the Listed Building Act, through changing the setting, with areas with regards to MPPF 2021, obviously now the amended MPPF, actually the relevant paragraphs 202 at the time to be relevant, and the harm would be significant to the non-designated heritage asset. Therefore, paragraph 203 is relevant. This application is considered to be contrary to paragraphs 97C and 206. Public benefit should be weighed against the harm. It should be also noted that the MPPF affords great weight to the asset's conservation. So basically, in terms of that, we've weighed the harm to the listed building against the development itself, and therefore the balance has been taken is that harm is acceptable, because you've gone from the buildings being set in an open environment to now being set within, being carefully placed within a new development. So in our balanced approach, and following some discussions with the heritage side of Place Services from our own perspective as a local planning authority, not as a consultee, and also the work we've done with both the developer and also our own urban designer, we've reached that position where the development is considered acceptable based on the public benefit, and that is set out, as the case officer said, within the relevant paragraphs in the report. So the position we've taken is the fact that, based on those matters, the development does impact the heritage assets, but the public benefits override the harm that would be caused. And that harm happens when all new developments happen in the vicinity of listed buildings, and you just have to weigh the impact of that harm against the listed buildings themselves. And based on that, it's been decided that it's acceptable for the site not to have the positive weight of that development, means the site can come forward.
Just in terms of the noise point, Councillor Rimmer, this is set out in 5.7.1 of the report. So it's the, as you've noted, it's the dwellings closest to Southend Road that have the most are most affected. And the report says, in respect of those, that for these dwellings during the daytime period, habitable rooms located on the facades of the rows of dwellings that directly face onto Southend Road will require standard thermal glazing and mitigation to ensure the appropriate daytime internal ambient noise levels can be achieved. The plan below, which is on page 65, taken from the noise impact assessment, identifies that dwellings directly facing Southend Road are predicted to fall within the medium and high risk category during the daytime periods. Therefore, alternative means of ventilation is recommended for these specific dwellings to prevent overheating. All remaining dwellings within the site are predicted to fall within the low and negligible risk category during the daytime periods. The mitigation measures relate to first floor openable windows that are likely to remain closed during the night time due to road noise, and therefore mitigation is required to prevent the potential for overheating to these properties. This is so the mitigation is secured by condition. We did reconsult the Environmental Health Officer earlier today, who has confirmed that the noise impact assessment demonstrates the scheme's compliance and therefore acceptability with WHO guidelines. And he confirms that you discussed the protection of residents within the rooms facing onto Southend Road within your report, as mitigation will be secured by condition. I have nothing further to add. I hope that helps.
Before we come back to you, Councillor Rimmer, can you tell us which condition that is, please, please, Mr. Sweeney?
Yeah, that's condition 28.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer, you wish to come back?
Yes, I think on the heritage assets, I did ask which conditions are covered in terms of the materials and what other landscaping conditions there might be that actually address and to protect the heritage assets. On the noise, I guess I've got this question still nagging in my head. What detriment to human hearing would these people suffer if they open their windows on a hot summer's day?
If I come back to you with regards to materials, condition 14 relates to that. So that would require samples of the external elevation treatments to be agreed, obviously prior to installation. So really, as I said before, those details that I gave in the presentation are broadly indicative at this stage, but give you a rough idea.
In terms of your query about noise, I mean, I think the residents would have the option to open the windows or to use mechanical ventilation if they were uncomfortable with the noise levels. It's road traffic, so there's obviously properties on the south side of Southend Road which equally would have similar noise issues. Obviously, these ones will be protected through additional noise mitigation, which is secured by the condition.
Councillor Rimmer, which ones haven't we covered yet?
Yeah, I'm just, I think really the way the report has been written in respect to the heritage assets, there's a comment in there about the cars being removed, improving the aspect of the heritage asset. Is it fair to say that's untrue because we're going to have buildings there instead?
So the position of the cars on site is actually where the open space would be proposed, so there isn't any development proposed in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Webb, I believe you wish to ask some questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't know if you can bring up the slide showing the site layout again. That's the one. Yeah, it's difficult to see on the plan, but the play area where that is sited, just a query around the secure by design element, really. I mean, it looks as though it's laid back and a bit remote from the rest of the houses. Is it in clear sight line of any of the homes?
Yeah, this is the visual that shows that. So there will be houses that overlook the play space.
Right, I see.
In terms of secure by design, there is a condition as well that relates to the dwelling houses, so that covers that off, although I appreciate that's slightly different to the play area.
Right, okay. Also, alluding back to the Southend Road, the actual site takes up quite a large footprint along the Southend Road. My next question really is around pedestrian crossing and the safety of pedestrians crossing Southend Road from this proposed site. It appears to be there's only a bridge which is being put forward, the use of the existing bridge as an access route. Now, I don't know what kind of bridge it is, whether it's stepped or is it a sloped access, and how accessible is it for all residents?
The answer is no. Obviously, it can't cater for everybody because it's a stepped access. There's no ramps up to it.
For disabilities.
Yeah, sorry. There's also a pedestrian crossing on Southend Road to the south of the site, further down past Cox's Farm Road. Other than that, existing facilities are up further north beyond the petrol station.
So there's no other pedestrian crossing along that site footprint? Can't see anything on the plan.
Yeah, these plans probably don't really show it very well, but there are two other uncontrolled pedestrian crossing points being proposed, but they are purely just drop curbs, not aligned or marked crossing as
Right,
such.
yeah, so no safe crossing. Okay.
Just to sort of reconfirm that these have been reviewed by the Highway Authority and we haven't had any objections from them. They've also been included in the road safety audit, but I appreciate your concerns.
Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the education funding, obviously there's two primary schools within quite close proximity to the two sites. We've got no early years funding due to the excess in spaces. We've got secondary education funding due to the lack of spaces, but there's nothing for primary education. Do we know why that is?
Councillor McGeorge, obviously we do, the requirements for education go through the Essex County Council. We're just going to find you the response to that, which will give you some idea of what they sought and why they sought it. So, Councillor McGeorge, in terms of early years and childcare, Essex County Council has a statutory duty under the Childcare Act 2006 to ensure that there is sufficient and accessible high-quality early years and childcare provisions to meet the local demand and parental choice. This includes provision of childcare places for children aged 0 to 5 years, as well as wraparound provision for school-aged children 5 to 11 years. The proposed development is located within Bursted, and according to the latest available childcare sufficiency data, there are 15 early years providers within the ward. Overall, a total of 33 unfilled places are recorded. As there are sufficient places available in the area, developers' contribution towards new childcare places will not be required in this application. Go down to primary school. In terms of primary school, it just says a developer contribution is not required at this time, and that will be set out in the 10-year forecast. So there is some capacity in the Billericay schools at the moment to pick up this development. And that was from Essex County Council, dated October last year.
Did you wish to come back, Councillor McGeorge? In that case, Councillor Sargent.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to raise the point of flood risk on page 67. The reason I'm raising this is because of late there has been so much flooding all over the country, and we are here at Basildon, we are putting an awful lot of homes on Greenbelt land, and I'd like to ask if the council are satisfied that, considering the rainfalls that are very, very frequent and more than we've ever coped with, are the measures that are in the report are they adequate and able to cope with any future freaky rain periods that we have at certain times of the year, or if not all year round, as we know through the climate change? Thank you, Chairman.
So in terms of flood risk, we consult the lead local flood authority, which is Essex County Council. They've reviewed all the submitted documents that we've received in respect of flooding, including the surface water management strategy, and that sets out the SUDS infrastructure there being proposed. Obviously, we've got a large proportion of the site that's being left undeveloped and where the SUDS areas would go and the attenuation would be located. As I said before, Essex County Council have, the LLFA, the lead local flood authority, reviewed all these documents and they've raised no objection, subject to securing conditions on planning permission, which we normally would see. So we're talking about conditions in respect of a detailed surface water drainage scheme for the site based on SUDS principles, a scheme to minimise the risk of off-site flooding caused by surface water runoff and groundwater during the construction works and to prevent pollution, and also to ensure that a maintenance plan for the surface water drainage system is provided, and this includes yearly logs of maintenance. Yeah, but as I say, because they've raised no objection, we don't have any concerns at this stage.
Councillor Sargent, also the site has to provide storage to ensure no off-site flooding as a result of the development during the storm events up to and including a 1 in 100 year plus 40% climate change event, and then demonstrate that all storage features can half empty within 24 hours for the 1 in 30 plus 40% climate change critical storm event. So in terms of both events we've had recently, the site would actually deal with that, and that is why the site has actually come. The site, in terms of the capacity of this site, should be nearer 200 units, and that's why the site capacity has come down to 99, because there is a requirement to mitigate the flooding on the site through the large areas that have been put over to SUDS, and also to deal with the ecology on the site in terms of that boundary treatment to deal with the dormice.
Did you wish to come back, Councillor Sargent?
Well, I do. I mean, to thank the officer for, giving that information. It's absolutely crucial, particularly on the freaky weather that we're going to be experiencing, no doubt, in years to come, and to give the people that, when those homes are built, assurance that they're not in an area that floods, because it's been absolutely horrendous. I'm sure you'll all agree with what we've witnessed over the past couple of weeks. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Anyone else wishing to ask questions before I take us out of session? Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'm just going to the National Planning Policy Framework and paragraph 196, and it says that plans should set out a positive strategy for the conservation and enjoyment of the historic environment. And I'm just seeing, and so I go back in terms of the question I asked before, in terms of the conditions, whether we feel we've got conditions that do that, set out a positive strategy for the conservation and enjoyment of this historic environment when this development, if this development is passed.
The answer to that question is yes, we do. I mean, there's been a lot of work around the historic assets in terms of designing the scheme, and also, I think, going back to Councillor Sargent's point, the fact that we've had to deal with significant flooding on the site, and the lowest part of the site is adjoining to one of the key agrarian buildings that is Southend Road. I think that the scheme itself has been designed well to deal with that, and the public benefits of the scheme obviously add additional weight to granting planning permission. So in officers' terms, we think that has been properly addressed in the report and how we've dealt with the application.
Did you wish to come back, Councillor Rimmer?
Yeah, no, sorry, I know I was guilty of asking a yes-no question, but I was expecting probably to know which conditions actually address that in terms of providing and setting out a positive strategy for the conservation and enjoyment of the historic environment.
set out at condition 2, that relates there is already set in place the street scenes that we've already dealt with, and the housing typologies and materials plan set out at condition 2. And the boundary treatments for the whole site are set out in that already. So those things are already submitted on behalf of the applicant. So those matters will relate to how the buildings sit within the wider context of the new development. In terms of other developments, obviously we're looking at tree protection. That's at condition 6. Obviously, there's an archaeology and evaluation and excavations that looks at the wider context of the historic environment at paragraph 10. Obviously, the condition to do with site levels is important, because obviously that will then ensure that the buildings sit correctly next door to those listed assets. Condition 14 deals with materials, which obviously are key to that. And then attached to that, we've got all the soft and hard landscaping requirements set out at condition 17, at condition 19, and that goes on to the condition to do with hard landscaping at condition 20. So those matters are all dealt with. In terms of other issues, obviously we've got carefully placed play areas that ensure they don't interfere with the listed buildings themselves. So I think within the work we've done, with this application, I think that in terms of creating a suitable habitat for those listed buildings to be retained in, even though we are adding new built form to that area, I think that the application seeks to protect those listed buildings as much as we can, bearing in mind conservation is just as important as actually retain those buildings in that agrarian setting that they've been used to sitting in for a while. However, the buildings to the north has already had the impacts of Highfield Road impacting its overall development, obviously historically. So that has not sat in that wider context for a number of years. And as retaining the allotments that sit between that and that listed asset and Highfield Road are important as well, because that's created some space to the north of that boundary as well.
Did you wish to come back, Councillor Rimmer? Okay. That being the case, I'm going to take the meeting out of session because we have a number of people who wish to address us. One of those people is actually remote. Is it possible for us to arrange for that speaker to come on first? This is Paul Nisbet, who is a resident who wishes to address the committee.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Nisbet. You have 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you very much. So my objection to this development focuses on the impact of the Greenbelt land and wildlife. I am concerned about the impact on local traffic and infrastructure, but this has already been covered with other responses. So I live 2 minutes walk away from the development. Multiple times each week I walk past the site morning and night. I regularly see foxes, badgers, muntjacs entering and exiting the site. And I have badgers that visit my garden that travel from there, and I know this because I recognise distinct markings. There are sparrowhawks and red kites hunt here. Numerous species of small birds and larger birds roost there as well. The ecological impact assessment acknowledges that the development will have a negative impact on the wildlife that lives and uses the site, including protected species, badgers, bats, newts and dormice. The site hosts many established semi-mature and mature trees, and the arboricultural impact assessment does acknowledge that a large number of these will be destroyed. Trees that have grown for 50 to 100 years, established hedges and trees that will no longer be available to birds, insect and pollinators. There's bats that have been found on the site which are struggling to fight a losing battle, and I think as good citizens of the planet we should be supporting this fight for survival and not aiding to their decline. Hedgehogs have been identified as living at and using the site. The People's Trust for Endangered Species recently estimated UK hedgehog populations 879,000. 50 years ago, this was approximately 36 million. So the building of properties on this site is not going to support the continued existence of hedgehogs. The planned landscaping sounds positive. However, this offers zero guarantee that it will remain once properties are occupied, as locally new homes often have front lawns paved over for extra car parking space, removing of garden landscaping in favour of large paved areas and plastic lawns, and I do remain sceptical that new landscaping will be allowed to flourish. We are all responsible for the destruction of the natural environment across the world, and I think we should be taking every opportunity to slow this down and the extinction of local greenbelt land and the huge range of animal and plant life that will disappear as a result of this development. In 20 years' time, no one's going to be saying we're fortunate we built 99 homes here, but we will be saying we're fortunate to have saved a mature and established landscape that contributes to the local natural environment. I think with 200 homes already approved down the road, 5-minute walk away at Kennel Lane, I do not believe it's in the interest of the natural environment to remove further habitats from my community. So I urge and implore the council to reject the development and know the conscience clear when it comes to supporting the natural environment and the ecosystem for future generations. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you all. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Nisbet. Could we ask you to turn your microphone off and return to listening to us remotely, please? Thank you. Okay. I have a number of other speakers, so I'm going to call Mr. Gavin Taylor first, if he'd like to come forwards to the microphone. And after that will be Joanne Proudwood, so if she can be ready to come to the microphone when Mr. Taylor has finished. Okay, which microphone is it? That one. Is that one? No. That one, the middle one. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and that time will start from the moment you turn your microphone on. There's a set of traffic lights on my desk here, which will show you how the time's going. When it gets to amber, you've got 30 seconds left.
Before I start, there's a factual correction that the lady there was an honest one. You said it was 1.5 metres to the town centre. It's actually 1.5 miles to the town centre, and it was I just want to make that it's not just an easy walk. No, thank you. Do you start me?
No, you press your microphone and you'll start, and you can start speaking. Okay, hopefully we'll get that sorted out so that we can hear what Mr. Taylor's got to say.
Okay, thank you. Right, good evening. My name's Gavin Taylor. I'm a borough resident based in Billericay. I'm here tonight to read a comment issued by Billericay Action Group, which was posted on Facebook 2 days ago and sent to the Bursted Ward councillors. BAG have given me permission to read this out to the Planning Committee tonight. The BAG comment. We appreciate that Basildon Council's planning officers have a difficult job to do, but sometimes things don't add up or make sense. Planning applications are complex and take a lot of professional time to appraise, and each has its own pros and cons. But some matters are omnipresent and should be applied consistently across applications. Just 3 months ago, it was recommended that planning permission be refused for the proposed development on Potash Road. No very special circumstances existed that outweighed the harm to the Greenbelt. The Planning Committee unanimously agreed with that recommendation. The Council's poor position on housing delivery, looking backwards and forwards, was as acute then as it is today, just a few weeks later. But that lack of housing provision is now being cited as very special circumstances to recommend approval of the development of 99 houses on Southend Road. This lack of consistency is confusing as it is worrying. To recommend approval for more and more planning applications, increasingly in the Greenbelt, in the hope that they address the 5-year housing land supply problem is unsustainable, especially when permission already exists for over 6,000 dwellings in the borough yet to be built. The vast majority of these are on brownfield sites where development should be prioritised. Even approving Greenbelt sites doesn't immediately or fully fix the gap in the housing supply, because it's down to when they are built and not simply the result of giving permission. In many ways, the Potash Road and Southend Road are very similar, similar. In addition to being greenbelt, they are both known to be diversity rich with resident populations of dormice and badgers, both protected species. Both sites contain established trees and hedgerows and maintain the openness of the green belt. But the Planning Committee, to their credit, has been consistent and has rightly refused permission for housing developments in the Green Belt in recent years, and since the previous local plan was withdrawn, such as Maitland Lodge, Kennel Lane, Dunton Road and the aforementioned Potash Road. The South End Road site is sensitive for many reasons, and we call upon our borough councillors on the Planning Committee to do the right thing again. To grant permission would potentially set an unstoppable precedent ahead of numerous other Greenbelt planning applications yet to be decided, with many more expected this year, if the perceived need to fix the 5-year housing supply prevails over everything else. To be credible and to demonstrate to residents they have not given up on the Green Belt, the Planning Committee must stay consistent and refuse permission for South End Road on Wednesday evening. Thank you.
Could I ask you to turn... You have turned the microphone off, lovely, thank you. Okay, Joanne Proudwood, are you ready to... Right. When she has finished, it'll be Sandra McCarthy. Yep, if you'd like to take your seat, get yourself comfortable. When you're ready, if you turn the microphone on, you will have 3 minutes and we will time it with the traffic lights. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Joanne Proudfoot and I'm a local resident. I had no intention of speaking tonight, but I came along and I saw there was not a lot of people here and I felt I just had to say what I felt. Now, I'd like to say thank you to our very first speaker. He said everything that I feel here in my heart. And I'm here to ensure that my view is heard by you, because I strongly believe that the green belt has to be saved. There is no other argument. All these lovely for allotments and all this puff that we're being given to make us feel better, like they said before, once that green belt's gone, it's gone forever. And I strongly feel that that needs to be preserved. And as much as I hate speaking out in public, I feel so strongly about it. That's why I'm here, to plead our councillors to vote against this on the basis that we should be protecting our green belt.
Thank you, Mrs Proudwood. If I call Sandra McCarthy, and she will be followed by Steve McCarthy. Same applies, Ms McCarthy. You've got 3 minutes from the moment you turn your microphone on. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandra McCarthy. I live in the Swallows, which is going to be quite close to the proposed development. Like the first gentleman said, and like Joanne has just said, I strongly believe that we should keep the green belt as green belt. There's enough brownfield sites out there that you can use. Okay, it will take more work to get them into the state they need to be in. Green belt's there for a reason. One, it's to stop the urban sprawl so that we don't link up. Not that I've got anything against Basildon or Wickford, but it's to stop the... No, I've got nothing against... I'm from East London originally, so I'm not going to say anything. But it's to stop the urban sprawl, and it's to keep you separate, so we become, stay Billericay, you stay Wickford, you stay Basildon. The wildlife is close to my heart. I encourage everything I can into the garden, spend a fortune on food, my husband would tell you that. So for me, it's about keeping the green belt, it's about keeping the wildlife and keeping it safe. A lot of it is on the endangered list, and we're just going to add to that by building this development. And the other thing is the extra traffic that is going to be on the South End Road. Has anyone been down the South End Road between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning? And between 4 and 6 o'clock at night, it's gridlocked. Something that should take you 10 minutes to get from the top end where the garage is down to the bottom end into Wickford can take you up to half an hour. So it's the extra traffic which is going to impact the local people that are already living there, the children trying to get across the road. So that's my argument. So I just plead with you, please leave the green belt alone, go and find some brownfields to build on and spend a bit more money bringing them up to scratch. Leave the green belt alone and the wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms McCarthy. Steve McCarthy's next, and after him will be Carol Price. And make yourself comfortable. As soon as you put your microphone on, we'll start timing you, Mr McCarthy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo the comments of Mr Nisbet. I think he was very articulate in his argument. I moved to this area 16 years ago because I wanted to get away from city life. In the 16 years that I've lived in this area, I've noticed the amount of traffic that's increased year by year by year. Unfortunately, I'm retired now, so I don't have the hassle of driving into London. But with the increased developments that are proposed, that situation is only going to get worse, as my wife just commented about the time that it takes to get down the South End Road. There was one point of fact that I'd like to raise. On one of the screens earlier, there was a make-up of the number of properties that were going to be built, but the number of 99 doesn't actually match the number of properties that are spelled out separately. Is that where is the error? Is it 89 properties or 99? Perhaps you could check that and correct it. I have nothing else to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr McCarthy. Carol Price is next, please. And after her is Geraldine Carwin. Okay, again, no, that's it. There you are. Make yourself comfortable, Miss Price, and as soon as you turn the microphone on, you have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? No.
You've turned it off. Turn it back on. That's it. With the red light on, you've got the microphone on. Now you can start.
I didn't intend to speak tonight. All I want to say is that it's Greenbelt and shouldn't be built on. There's enough brownfield sites everywhere. We already have a problem with traffic, as my previous speaker said. Certain times of the day takes double, treble the time to get anywhere. The animals all in the fields we see every day. They're all protected. I don't see how they're all going to be moved. And once the green belt is gone, it's gone. Never comes back. I think the first speaker said everything that I would have said. There's nothing else I can say. Sorry.
Okay, Geraldine Carwin and then Deborah Taylor. Once again, Miss Carwin, make yourself comfortable. As soon as you turn the microphone on, we'll give you 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Geraldine Kerwin. I'm a resident of Highfield Road, have been for 25 years. Again, I didn't expect to be speaking here tonight. I have put my objections in letter to you. I just want to reiterate what everybody else has said. I want to object to any development on Greenbelt land. It disrupts the local residents, but it also, as others have said, a huge impact on the local wildlife, the destruction of the habitat, and the fact that there is another development being approved just a half a mile up the road in Kennel Lane. All the services that you've alluded to earlier, which are, you know, the local shops, the doctor's surgery, they're all very limited. And you've got 99 houses containing so many people. You've got a further development, another 200 houses containing more people, more residents. How are these people going to have access to the local doctors, dentists, schools, and local transport? So it's my objection that the development does not go ahead because of the negative impact it's going to have on all of us residents behind me. And indeed, if it is built, then the individuals that will buy the properties and move into these developments, they don't know what they're letting themselves in for. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kerwin. Deborah Taylor. And after Ms. Taylor, I'm going to call Lauren Patel. Okay. You've got 3 minutes from the time you turn the microphone on.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Deborah Taylor. I'm a resident of Billericay, although not in Southend Road. I'm objecting to this on it building on Greenbelt. When the local plan was withdrawn 2 years ago, we were told that not being able to build on Greenbelt was a valid constraint, and I think you need to make sure that you apply that. 5-year land supply, which keeps coming up as the special circumstances, we all know that in reality there is more than a 5-year land supply there, but it just can't be counted. And everything's based on spurious targets that the government just don't seem to be able to sort out. You've seen the picture of it. It's right next to more green land space. It's just going to open up the urban sprawl, and we can all just sort of see that happening. It's going to be the first of that urban sprawl on that side of the road. We're all fighting for resources, everybody. It's making us all very agitated. We're building up a cooking pot here of people getting agitated, fighting for resources. It's all very well making a contribution of 0.8 million towards education, services, etc. But if we can't get the GPs and there isn't the space in the schools for people to go there, then there's no point. And we already haven't got enough hospital places, GP schools. The railway station, nobody's mentioned the railway station. People will be getting the bus, going to the railway station, and that will be more people fighting to get on the train to go into London. I'm sure the development will be very, very nice indeed, but actually there are no guarantees. There are things said in this about no land banking, etc., but there are no consequences for them if they do that. We haven't said if you don't build within that time, then these are the consequences to make sure it happens. So it'll be yet another development that's been approved on paper. I've done that. That's it. So I strongly object to it, and I really hope that you vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. Lauren Patel, and then after that I'll have Ray Houghton. That's it. 3 minutes when you turn the microphone on.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Lauren Patel, Planning Consultant representing David Wilson Homes. The scheme before committee today has been carefully considered and subject to extensive pre-application discussions dating back to 2014. The development will bring many benefits to this currently unmanaged site, with suitability of the site for development thoroughly assessed through the Council's evidence base. The development will create a high-quality new neighbourhood to complement the existing character of South Green. The proposed layout provides generally spaced housing within an extensive landscape-led setting. At the heart of the development, the houses are set around a new public green link through the site. The layout responds to the surrounding listed dwellings along Southend Road with generous offset distances of at least 30 metres and substantial landscape buffers. The significance of these heritage assets have been explored in detail and fully recognised by the submitted heritage statement. The proposed development presents a proportionate, well-designed scheme that adopts place services recommendations for design mitigation. The scheme will make a significant contribution to addressing the borough's housing needs, providing 99 new homes, of which 37 will be much-needed affordable housing. The affordable housing will either be social rent or intermediate units. A range of dwelling sizes are proposed, including smaller 1- and 2-bedroom starter homes and 62% family-sized units. All units will meet space standards and all will be either wheelchair adapted or adaptable. In addition, much-needed bungalows are proposed. 47% of the site will remain as green infrastructure, will provide new tree and hedgerow planting, providing ecology enhancements, natural play areas along the Green Link, a foraging route, and landscaped ecology and education garden for both new and existing residents. The Green Link will provide safe pedestrian and cycle access through the site. Allotments are also proposed, which will be available to the local community. Access is provided from Southend Road with policy levels of parking plus visitor parking. A number of highways improvements will be made to provide safer crossing along Southend Road. Contributions will also be made to improve sustainable travel connections, including upgrades to existing bus stops on Southend Road and improved evening bus services. The units directly fronting Southend Road will benefit from thermal glazing with ventilation. In summary, the development will provide a number of very special circumstances, including provision of much-needed market and affordable homes, a range of housing sizes, bungalows, a new pedestrian and cycle green link, highways and public transport improvements, allotments, new play areas, foraging routes, garden and education spaces. In addition, contributions would ensure infrastructure provision, including education and healthcare, is upgraded to meet the needs of the new community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Ray Houghton. Yep. 3 minutes from when you turn the microphone on, Mr. Houghton.
Good evening, members. My name is Ray Houghton and I'm the Head of Planning at David Wilson Homes Eastern Counties, based in Chelmsford. The approval of this development does not establish a legal precedent on Greenbelt land, as each site is considered on its specific planning merits. David Wilson Homes has won the HBS 5-Star House Builder Award for customer satisfaction for the last 14 years, the only national house builder to do so. This is testament to the high-quality, efficient homes, including the placemaking, such as we've achieved at Hullbridge, a former Greenbelt itself. This site is not a pristine, unspoilt green oasis that visitors can enjoy. There's no public access. As your professional officers have advised, and the photos show, this site performs poorly against the test for Greenbelt. We do not have a land bank. First legal completions are expected by the end of 2025, should planning consent be granted. The proposals have evolved and have been informed by a continuous process of engagement to ensure these will be homes that Billericay can be proud of. Residents have told us that Billericay's youth is having to move, often outside the borough, to make their dream of home ownership a reality. That's why our package of starter homes is aimed at those who'd want to continue living in the area, be supported by friends and family, and help support local schools, services and facilities. We are over-providing in terms of affordable homes, and importantly, Basildon Council will retain the nomination rights for every affordable home in perpetuity. That means local homes based on local need for local people. The density proposed ensures that proper-sized gardens and appropriate parking for families, more green spaces for the wider community to enjoy, and opportunities to significantly boost diversity are available. The houses fronting Southend Road are set further back than the existing houses, for example. We're offering a package of highway improvements along with the extra £240,000 for enhanced bus services, particularly for those for the evenings. Our North-South Green Link will improve safety for pedestrians and cyclists as an alternative to Southend Road footway. Shops, transport links and parks are all within walking distance. The site is not in agricultural use and is more characterised by cars and a telephone mast. This development will provide at least 31% reduction in carbon emissions, resulting in a 20% reduction in energy bills for householders. The traditional homes with traditional materials are appropriate to the local vernacular, and we've worked with officers in detail to achieve that. The drainage scheme allows for a climate change of, and also in addition to 40% storm events. The development will provide a positive strategy for the enjoyment of heritage assets by opening up the site to the public access, with a landscape-led development including 70 new trees and additional landscaping. I respectfully ask that you take this opportunity and approve the proposals as recommended by your officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. Okay, we're going to bring the committee back into session. And I'm going to start off by asking the officers if they could point out to me what measures are being taken for bats, hedgehogs and dormice, as mentioned by the first speaker, please.
There are significant conditions attached to the planning consent. They can be found at condition 7 and 8, dealing with badgers. They can be found at condition 12, dealing with wildlife sensitive lighting. They can be found at 16, dealing with biodiversity enhancement strategy. They can be found at 17, dealing with landscape, ecology and management. They can be found at 24, dealing with swift and back boxes. And I've missed out the dormice. The dormice one is somewhere. Where's the dormice one? There's a dormice one somewhere as well. Condition 11 deals with mitigation licence for dormice. Obviously, dormice are protected, and that's why there's that significant band across the top, the eastern boundary, that is there to deal with the dormouse. And obviously, they need a licence before they can do any works to protect the dormice as well.
Thank you very much, Ms Lyons. Okay, first speaker is Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, I want to thank the residents for speaking today, because I know some of them. I've spoken to them before the meeting, and they really didn't come here to speak today, but I found it very difficult to do so. But they represented themselves superbly there, and we're used to talking in public, but it's not for them. So full praise to them for doing that. A couple of points I want to make. Is regarding the land banking. I heard again from the gentleman there that there won't be no land banking, but as already been mentioned by one of the members of the public, that can't be guaranteed as far as I know. If they don't do it, what punishment is there set in place to do it? There's no repercussions whatsoever. So to say you're not going to do it is one thing. But if you don't do it, there's no comeback on it if you do. So it's just don't get that at all. Doctors and nurses, again, throwing money at that. If we haven't got the doctors and nurses, there's no good throwing money at buildings to try and improve them. What did concern me, and it was something a gentleman on the left here said regarding the qualities and diversity regarding the crossings. I'm quite surprised that they're uncontrolled crossings. So basically, you're saying if you're blind or not, you're going to have great difficulty in crossing those roads. And I did notice, I must admit, I looked at our equalities and diversity section in here, and it doesn't attack that at all. And I thought that would have been something they would at least have raised the issue. You know, it's all very well being nice and gently, but you've got to get to the place, and to have no positions there for them to get across is a bit of a concern. And to put my hand up to support an application like this, when somebody gets knocked down at the first time at the crossing, what they could have done something about, is a worrying point. The 4 allotments. That's the tip of the iceberg. To me, that's just a sweetener. Are they going to be coming off of our list that we've already got from all over the borough, or are they going to be private? Don't really know that. But the big point that I also got, someone did mention again, we've got Kennel Lane down the road. We've had a huge development in Bursted already going down in Kennel Lane. And where's that going to stop? But one of my main points is on page 72, 5.1412. And it goes on. He says, going back to it, regarding the cars again and how it's going to improve the area. So we should pass this because it's going to improve the area. I've already gone into the detail of the fact they shouldn't be there in the first place. Well, how things have changed over the years. Because I remember Dale Farm. Now, Dale Farm was a scrap heap. It was a scrap yard. It was disgusting. But you know what? They put some really nice caravans on there. And they really did do them up nicely. So why did the council spend £10 million plus to preserve the green belt then, to get rid of some nice buildings? Let's be absolutely honest about it. Some very nice buildings that the travellers have put there. We didn't have the same policy then to say, well, let's put some nice places on here because to get rid of the scrapyard. No, it was the wrong thing to do because it was built on green belt. We fought it then, and there was people who went through a hell of a lot of aggro. And some people around this table, when that all kicked off in there. And to see something coming, recommendation is put some housing on there because it will tidy up the area and what it is now. Well, it's just lucky we didn't take that same approach with Dale Farm. I think the state that we would have been in then. So it's absolutely, the turnaround is amazing, absolutely amazing. And a couple of other things I want to raise. The Green Belt. We sat down when we tore up basically the local plan. On recommendation, from two aspects, we had an inspector tell us if you submit it as it is, it's not going to pass. So you've got two choices: submit it and it won't pass, or tear it up. That's what we've done. We tore it up. But having spoken to Council, Council told us categorically that if we do this, there's a very good chance when it comes to the Greenbelt developments, protecting the Greenbelt, we would have a good case to stand by. That doesn't seem to have happened with all the developments that have been going on. So, and again, we're basing our product on the fact that had this local plan gone through, this is what would have been allowed. We know the government inspector was not going to pass our local plan, so how do we know that what we was actually proposing at the time would have been acceptable? So as far as I'm concerned, using what we would have produced as a local plan is a nonsense. We should not be building on Greenbelt. This isn't special circumstances. Bursted has already had a lot of development being passed by the inspector on the Greenbelt, and it's had enough. So I may come back again later if I may, Chairman, if I could, having heard what other people said, but I feel very strongly and I should certainly not be supporting it. And I do agree again, we've got 1.85 thousand houses already, but that's not true. We know we've got more than that. We know we've got around about 6,000 houses that could be developed if there wasn't land banking. I rest my case.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I'll be in terms of the local plan and Greenbelt and reasons for withdrawing the local plan. I think the various members had various reasons. It wasn't just for that reason. But when we look at this, normally when we have an application in the Greenbelt, it's the only card that you're looking at normally. But in this circumstance, we've got two cards that have been on the table, which is the Greenbelt and the heritage assets. Now, in terms of the Greenbelt, actually the quality of the Greenbelt has to be graded on how strategically important it is. So if it's a bit of Greenbelt that's directly in between two towns, then that's more strategically important. When we did our assessment as a council, it didn't come out as that important in terms of strategic element. But coupling it with the fact you've got these heritage assets there and the assessment in the report from the Place Services built environment, where they've actually called out the fact that it's been decoupled and divorced from its agrarian setting as giving harm to the heritage assets of a medium level. And it actually stresses the paragraphs in the NPPF that we should actually be giving weight to. And it does, as the officers say that you should actually consider the benefits to the public and whether they outweigh or not. But it goes on to say, do not diminish the heritage assets. You know, it's quite clear. Now, it's a shame because the way this planning system works, we get 3 to 6 minutes from the developers, we get 3 minutes from members of the public. If it went to appeal, if it goes to appeal, the developer will get a lot more time to lay out all of their evidence and go through it all, and the other side will get more time to lay out their evidence and go through it all. The evidence we've got before us is quite limited. So I heard the developer's agent say that obviously that they want to open up the heritage asset, they want to actually improve access to it, etc. But I'm not seeing evidence of it here. I asked about which conditions would actually allow for that, and I'm afraid I wasn't convinced by that because the conditions seemed quite generic in nature, more about conservation and less about access and promotion. Really, that's quite bad for me. Looking at this, I'd have to say we have to protect these heritage assets, and so coupled with the Greenbelt, the heritage assets, it feels like a straight refusal on my part. But if this goes ahead, which it may do after appeal, because unfortunately the system is so tilted and against us at the moment in this country that even if we refuse it, the appeals inspector might actually allow this to go through anyway. If it goes ahead, please can we do something about these new residents that could be coming in those 15 homes where they're expected to keep their windows closed on a hot summer's day, or choose between that and damaging their hearing. I think it's not something that it might be considered acceptable now in today's day, but roll forward 10 years' time and I bet we'll be stopping developments like that on this basis.
Thank you, Councillor Rimmer. Councillor Brockman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things I want to pull up. The gentleman that's representing the developers, he said local homes for local people. What I'd like to know is what he's going to do to stop people from London and wherever buying those houses, because I can't see him doing anything. It's not going to happen. So it's not going to be local homes from local people, so please don't try and pull the wool over my eyes. I'm too old for all that. The traffic, I agree with all the residents. The road is horrendous. I go up and down there quite a lot, and I know that. Urban sprawl, I'll have you know, Wickford's lovely, so if you do join up with us, we're quite friendly people. You know, right, cars on there, it looks like Steptoe's Yard. Perhaps you'd all like to live in Steptoe's Yard, I don't know. And on appeal, the planning inspector will probably pass it. So I really don't know how I'm going to vote. I'm loath to pass it, to be honest with you, because I do like the green belt myself and I do love animals, so there's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brockman. I have Councillor Sargent next.
Thank you, Chairman. I am thoroughly with my colleague Councillor Blake on the comments that he's made. I am appalled that we have another application in front of us where we've heard so many over recent months all saying the same thing from our residents: harm to the green belt, traffic, the lack of school places, doctors' surgeries. It's the same old, same old. It wasn't that long ago that I came along to the Dunton Road and listened to the appeal, and we've got 2 appeals in this report that were passed within Green Belt, and I do believe that my colleague up the way there, you know, she did herself that it's kind of the norm. We don't have, and as said by the residents, we don't have the 5-year land supply. We have lots of houses that's been approved. They're not building them, but so we don't have the housing supply. And we could go on and on. And I know, you know, there's other developments that are on their way because it's open season now in our green belt. I brought up about the flooding because it's so key to everybody. Sitting here this evening, it was just last week when we were watching the awful circumstances those people are suffering. So if we are going to build on all of our green belt, which is that it's becoming apparent, you know, there's the evidence is here, then what is going to happen to the flooding? And you look at the measures that the actual developers have to put in, you know, the buffers they have to put in to counteract the urban sprawl, all the attenuation basins, the swales, all to counteract the flooding that is going to take place. And yes, I know that what the officer said, and I thank her for it. You know, when she said we're dealing with climate change, things will get worse. We know that. We've been warned about that. And I just get concerned that what we don't want Basildon to become is what we witnessed on the TV last week with all those properties absolutely underwater, and residents, the local residents, they come along, they have their say, and the fact that we've got no idea how this, what the decision will be this evening. That won't take long to find out. But when we do make the decision, if it is for refusal and it goes to appeal, then obviously we can only expect that it will be carried on appeal and those houses will be built. And it's all because we don't have a plan. But as my colleague had said, and I totally agree, we gave up the plan because of all the development. Most of the development that was in the local plan was built on the green belt, and we can't keep building on the green belt. If this was on a brownfield site somewhere, none of us here would have any argument whatsoever, and nor would the residents. And I do commend the fact that they've lowered the density, because that is so important. But it's the fact that it's on greenbelt land, and you've already had a very large development just up the road to it, and now you're going to put something, another development on. Although it's not so big, it just impacts on the current services. And this is what we said when we set about doing our local plan. It's infrastructure first. Where is the infrastructure? It's not there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as we've said before, we've had a lot of developments come through on the green belt that we're all going through on appeal. We can't take those into account when we're looking at individual sites. Now, as green belt development goes, this is actually one of the nicer ones I've seen. They've taken into account woodland, streams, it's an open plan site, but the fact remains, it's still green belt. So I still can't work out where I'm going on this, because I voted against all the other greenbelt developments. They've all gone through on appeal. It's a nice development, but I'm still torn. I can't necessarily vote on the greenbelt just because it's going to go through on appeal. So I'm on the fence as to where I am.
I would like to address committee. I can see members are finding this application difficult to determine in terms of whether they would support the recommendation put forward by officers. If you are minded to overturn that recommendation, then we would need to provide robust reasons for refusal in order to defend it at any potential appeal.
Sorry, Chair, I'm going to come in there. I'm going to say everyone on this committee is aware of that. Everyone on this committee is aware of those.
Councillor Blake, please. The officer is doing her duty by reminding us of that. Those of us who are experienced at in the planning committee are well aware of that. People like yourself. There may be some here that have not been on the committee for very long, or not for a long time. So, do I have any more speakers on this item? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think we should remember that we withdrew the emerging local plan in March 2022, primarily due to the potential loss of substantial amounts of the green belt within the borough. And therefore, we are now continually seeing applications coming forward on our green belt in a highly speculative manner. The NPPF states in paragraph 152 that inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the green belt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. This, of course, immediately leads developers to outline the very special circumstances to persuade us that despite the NPPF being clear that development is harmful to the green belt, their proposal is so brilliant because of very special circumstances that the application should be approved. In the case of Kennel Lane, the government-appointed planning inspector argued over 20 pages that the council's evidence base weighs heavily in favour of the development. In the case of Dunton Road, a different government-appointed planning inspector concluded that, guess what, the evidence base weighs very heavily in favour of the appeal proposal. Exactly the same words. So despite having a defined green belt, and despite the NPPF being clear that inappropriate development is harmful to the green belt, we are here tonight to decide whether 99 houses built in our green belt is acceptable and by definition not harmful to it. In the case of Kennel Lane and Dunton Road, the green belt was trumped by the council's inability to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply. In the case of the Kennel Lane appeal, the inspector stated that the demonstration of very special circumstances is an extremely high policy bar to cross. But 200 homes persuaded her that the policy bar wasn't that high after all and could be crossed. In the case of the Dunton Road appeal, the inspector concluded that very significant weight was attached to the delivery of market and affordable housing over the harm to the green belt. Madam Chairman, the government prescribed standard method follows a 4-stage process for calculating the minimum annual housing need figure for the borough. This complicated and purely arbitrary calculation gives a requirement for Basildon of 6,258 dwellings over 5 years, or 1,252 dwellings a year. The latest iteration of the NPPF, published on December the 19th, clearly states at paragraph 61 that the standard method is an advisory starting point for establishing a housing requirement. The supply of deliverable sites is expressed as a number of years' supply against the borough's total annualised housing requirement, which gives the 1.85 years' supply. You will note, Madam Chairman, that it is now no longer advisory. But as I have explained before, this council has granted planning permission for a total of 6,654 homes, which equates to 5 years, 5 years plus. But 4,711 of them do not meet the NPPF's requirement at paragraph 77 of being, quote, demonstrably deliverable. And they are deliverable, except that it is the developers who are not delivering them. The legislative backdrop and government-appointed planning inspectors rushed to justify building on the green belt to meet the government-imposed housing numbers are cards that are stacked against this council. Essentially, this council is now in the invidious position of having its green belt developed by default, because no matter that inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the green belt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances, unless of course the council doesn't approve enough so-called deliverable planning applications, and planning inspectors, who are government employees, are tasked with approving applications in the Green Belt to help towards the government's target of 300,000 homes per year, when suddenly almost any reason can be manipulated into very special circumstances that planning officers and planning committees have to take into account when deliberating on a specific planning application. Madam Chairman, I understand why planning officers have recommended that planning permission be granted in this case, and I have a sympathy for it. However, this application is in my ward and in our green belt, and my residents, together with the Great Bursted and South Green Village Council and Billericay Town Council, strongly object to this application, and I feel that I have no alternative but to vote for the refusal of planning permission.
Councillor Moore, I think that the whole committee understands what you're saying and sympathises with it. In fact, a lot of the committee have already mentioned the fact that of all the applications that have previously been refused and have been approved by the Inspector on Appeal. That having been said, we do have to consider the fact that they are being approved and will continue to be approved. We have got here a planning application that is a lot better than a great many that we've seen. It is a lot less dense at 28.8, I think it was the officer said, as opposed to the 35 that it could have been at. And if it was over the whole area, could have easily have got to about 280 dwellings, whereas this is for 99. It opens up the area and puts a footpath through the area, which not only these residents, but people in the rest of Billericay can use, instead of having to walk down the roads, which hopefully will lead to parents taking their children to school via that route, if they're going to St Peter's School, for instance, and will reduce the number of cars parking outside that school. So there are some very good points to it, especially the fact that the water retention sites within the site will stop areas flooding, i.e. the protected assets, the heritage sites are being protected from possible flooding by having the development and therefore the water retention measures in the site. It is not a site that the public have actually got access to at the moment, as has been mentioned, so it's opening up and giving more area for the public to use. It is also, if I can remember the points I was going to be making besides those. Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to make the area a green corridor for the public instead of having to use the South End Road. So the public that were mentioned about all the extra cars, in actual fact, this could actually reduce car usage because it's making a nice walk through the whole route. Okay, the public don't want to listen to this, but there is also the aspect that, unfortunately, we all have children, or nearly all of us have children, who need to have homes and they have to be built somewhere. And once again, I come back to the fact that the Inspector has said on numerous occasions before that some of these benefits he will take into consideration. And if this goes to appeal, as you've all said, it will be developed anyway. You have mentioned the previous developments where our decisions have been overturned.
Chairman, I wish I might put mine on record. I do not believe if we refuse it, that they will win an appeal. I think we've got enough causes here with the heritage and whatnot for it to be refused. So I wish not my comments on that are quite clear.
Councillor Blake, I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking. If you wish to speak, then I will let you come back. But that is some of the things that I think we should be taking into consideration when making the decision on this site. Notwithstanding the points that Councillor Moore has made, which were perfectly valid, that we have been told that Greenbelt is sacrilege, but unfortunately that's not the way it's turned out to be. So whoever told us was wrong, or the inspector's forgotten to listen to that particular person. I don't know which it is. Does anyone else wish to speak who hasn't previously spoken? No? Okay. Councillor Blake, you wish to come back?
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to apologise to you, Chairman, for interrupting you while you were speaking there. But I would like to be corrected that I have never said through this meeting that they will win on appeal. I don't think they will. I think we've got enough cause to actually stop that happening. So I just wish that to be put on record that I didn't say that. But I do apologise for interrupting you. You did not interrupt me.
Councillor Rimmer?
Yes, no, certainly. I think in terms of robust reasons, I think there are robust reasons to refuse. So I think this isn't just a straightforward Greenbelt case. We were presented the benefits versus Greenbelt in terms of Greenbelt as an argument. So here are the special reasons, here are the two aspects in respect to Greenbelt, but it wasn't weighed up against the heritage arguments that have been spelt out by the Place Services Built Environment Officer. So Councillor Blake's quite right, and I'm cynical about appeals. I'll be honest, I'm cynical about them, but he's quite right. We haven't had a case like this go up before appeal, where there's actually a heritage aspect to it of this strong, and Greenbelt, the combination. Where we've had heritage before, it was related to Brook House, and that was within the built environment. There was a heritage one that came to us once because it had been judicially reviewed, but the council hadn't actually given enough consideration to the heritage status, and then it had to come back for us to actually consider that heritage aspect. So I think we have to give due weight and consideration to the heritage, and I have, and I think that's enough reason to refuse. But there is there is less than significant harm, or less than substantial harm, but it's at a medium level for one of those heritage assets. But actually it's decoupling and divorcing those heritage assets from their agrarian setting, which the officer specifically stated was necessary to appreciate these heritage assets. So the very thing that is needed for those heritage assets in terms of their setting, that is being taken away. So this, if it goes to appeal, will be a very interesting appeal to look at in terms of appeal history, because we haven't had one like this, where there are two clear cards of why we should be refusing the special case in terms of Greenbelt and in terms of the heritage arguments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rimmer. I think everyone seems to have had their say now. So I'm going to put it to the vote as written in the agenda on page 11, which is that planning application number 23/01147/4, demolition of existing, wrong page, I want page 13, be granted planning permission subject to no call-in powers being exercised by the Secretary of State, the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure 37% affordable housing on site, together with financial contributions towards education provision, healthcare improvements, local delivery pilot scheme, sustainable transport, evening bus service contribution, bus stop improvements, employment and skills, allotment strategy, off-site BNG strategy, compliance with the habitat regulations, RAMS, monitoring fees, payment of the local planning authority's professional and legal fees associated with the completion of the Section 106 legal agreement as set out in Section 5.20 and subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision notice and to the conditions on pages 81 through to 93. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour of the recommendation, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 in favour. And those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. The recommendation is carried. Thank you very much. And we will call a 10-minute break now so that the members of the public who wish to leave can, and the members of the committee who wish to take a comfort break can also do so. Thank you.
if there's anything that's been identified that's created that problem that needs to be rectified before the new building goes in place.
I'm not myself, but I know the applicant will be speaking, and hopefully they may be able to answer that question for you. But that's more of a structural issue that they would have to overcome. Yeah. I've just been told to say they would be looked at via the building regulations anyway. So.
Did you wish to come back, or that's all, Councillor? Yep, Councillor McGeorge.
Thank you, Chair. What will be happening to the residents who are currently in situ in the non-falling down building?
Yeah, I found out this. They do an assessment of all the current occupiers, and they would then either be decanted to an appropriate unit, and then I believe they do have an opportunity to move back into the units when they're built. What's happening?
Did you have any further questions? Okay, Councillor Myers.
David.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got a couple. One of them was about the car parking. Here's on this slide. It shows you 15 bays, then new parking plus 10 on the other side of the block, plus a reorganised 8. What was there before? How many? Because that's say there's a lot of car parking, but I'm counting there's 33 spaces can be put in.
Yeah, at the moment there's around 8 in this area. That's why they're remodifying it. That bit south of the existing properties. Oh, it's done it again. And to the rear of these houses, there's no parking spaces there at the moment. People do park adjacent to that area, so there will be 1 or 2 lots, but they'd be more formalised onto this. At the moment, it's just a grassed area. So,
Okay, thank you. And the second one was about, you mentioned the replacement trees that were going to go in for the ones that have been taken out. Do we know what sort of maturity they're going to be when they do go in?
I mean, there's a mixture, but I think they're all kind of semi-mature. They call them semi-mature standards. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Rimmer.
Sorry, just off the back of Councillor Myers' question, can you confirm that they will all be native British species of trees?
So we've got a condition about landscaping, so we can actually put the species here, but we can appropriately look at that as part of any landscaping scheme. Yeah, we've got a condition about that. Yeah, but.
Okay, so what number is the condition then, please? Councillor Rimmer, the condition 12 about native trees should cover that one for you. If there's no further questions, I have got some... Councillor, one meeting. If there's no further questions, I've got some members of the public wishing to speak. So I'm going to take us out of session to allow Rebecca Lovelock to address us first of all. And after her, we've got Daniela Kanzi. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Rebecca Lovelock, Senior Project Manager in the Development and Investment Team. I speak in support of the application as a representative of the New Homes Programme. The development at High Barretts has been brought forward due to the compromised structure of Block 20 to 36. The High Barretts blocks were constructed in the 1960s, 70s and are co-joined. Prior to construction of the blocks, a number of trees on the site were removed to enable development at that time. In the early 90s, the emergence of cracking in the built form of Block 20 to 36 required structural investigations. Inspections concluded cracking and damage to the substructure as a result of ground heave movements. Remediation works to resolve this in the form of expansion joints, foundation widening and a new block wall took place in 1991. In recent years, Block 20 to 36 has shown further signs of structural damage. This has been closely monitored by the Council. On the 23rd of September 2020, decanting and demolition of the block for redevelopment was approved by the Housing Development Subcommittee in line with the structural report recommendations. Following approval, the subsequent resident decants were carried out. Whilst Block 2 to 18 has committee approval to be decanted and demolished, this block remains occupied as the substructure is not compromised. Since 2020, the Council has acquired 3 properties at High Barretts to enable the redevelopment to progress. The condition of Block 20 to 36 has resulted in the loss of 9 socially rented properties for much needed housing in the borough. The scheme aims to redevelop the area to provide 26 modern socially rented properties, a net gain of 8 additional housing units to the housing stock. Currently, there is limited parking and communal parking provision at High Barretts. While surveys have not indicated parking pressures within the development area, the scheme takes an estate regeneration approach by incorporating an increase to communal parking to the west of the development. This is a topic which residents wish to be improved during consultation. Consultation to date has been positive. Of the 4 residents of Block 2 to 18 who attended the REBA Stage 2 consultation, all expressed a wish to return to the new development. The Council will use its best endeavours to facilitate this, and these discussions with all residents from the block have already taken place with the housing team, and this will remain ongoing. To facilitate the delivery of the scheme, officers are exploring government funding opportunities through the Brownfield Land Release Fund and the Affordable Homes Programme. Before thanking the committee for consideration, I'll just address a question that was raised by Councillor Rimmer, is obviously the recent reports have recommended demolition and rebuild of the property due to the ongoing subsidence, and that's what prompted the original committee approval for demolition and rebuild of the structure. There was a recent media material raised around Grasscrete as a possible addition as a material for High Barretts, but the maintenance liability and the potential negative impact this would have means this option has been rejected for the scheme. The design of High Barretts focuses on sustainability and enhancing the surrounding public realm for both the new residents and existing communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Daniela Kansi.
Good evening all. Daniela Kansi, architect at ECD Architects. We are part of the design team working on High Barretts, which includes structural engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, and landscape architects. We would like to take the opportunity to expand on some key aspects of the project. So we are proposing a new block of 26 units with a mix of 2 bedrooms and 1 bedroom flats, and the scheme has been designed to the National Design Space Standard and with Part M42 accessibility standards. The volume proposed is between 3 and 5 stories, stepping down to 3 stories to the south along Sandon Road, and to provide a street frontage emulating townhouses without causing harm to the visual amenities of the area. The setback from the terraces along High Barretts is between 20 to 40 meters, and this layout provides communal amenity space and extensive green areas at the core of the site. Inset balconies with side privacy screens provide additional privacy and minimize overlooking to the neighboring sites. The units are distributed around 2 staircores to the north and to the south, and are accessed via open deck balconies. The north core, which is 5-story high, is provided with a passenger lift in line with the design principles given us by our client. Both course lobbies have CCTV surveillance and 2 levels of secured fob access to dwellings. Post boxes are located on external walls in the lobbies and are accessible by postmen from outside. Both of these requirements comply with Secure by Design guidance. Each unit have their own private amenity space in the form of either balcony or private garden to ground floor flats, as recommended by NDSS. New trees have been proposed in addition to the ones that will be replaced during construction. The planting strategy prioritizes local, low maintenance and drought tolerant species, and unlike the current arrangement, the proposed landscape strategy will meet the 10% net gain requirement for the incoming biodiversity net gain. It has also been assessed that roots of existing mature trees have caused cracks in the existing drainage system. To protect existing trees during construction and to identify the best location for new trees, we have consulted an arboriculturalist who provided a tree conservation strategy. Essex Highways have provided no objections to the parking provision of the scheme, which includes 15 parking bays on site, 10 bays along Sandon Road views, and 8 bays re-provided along Sandon Road with an improved layout. Electrical vehicle charging points and covered secure bike parking will be available to residents in line with approved document Part S. The scheme has been designed with a fabric-first approach and is powered by all-electric fuel and renewable energy with photovoltaic panels. Additional energy-saving features include water-saving fixtures, low-energy lighting, energy-efficient appliances, electrical vehicle charging. The acoustic survey undertaken has recommended to safeguard the location adjacent to South Main arterial roadway, and this has been key in passing approved document Part O overheating criteria. All of these measures take into consideration future climate scenarios and current fuel poverty by reducing CO2 emission and ensuring internal thermal comfort today and in the future. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kanzi. Okay, folks, going to bring us back into session, and I'm going to call Councillor McGeorge first.
Thank you very much. These flats are in my ward, and the subsidence on the buildings was actually one of the first bits of casework that I got when I started. So this is a long time coming to have these buildings replaced. We're getting more housing, which we desperately need. So, you know, I'm all for this. There's no reason that I wouldn't be.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you. They're not in my ward, but I know this area very well. I've been up and down them a few times, some of those blocks nearby. I don't. It's certainly in keeping the design with the other blocks that are nearby. In many ways, it's an improvement in terms of the design. It's clearly the issue. They've added more height, but in putting the building further back from the other residential properties, they've actually mitigated that extra height. And obviously that extra height is going to bring in more housing, like Councillor McGeorge just mentioned. It's definitely something that has to be done. The building's got to be replaced. We've just heard that. I still have a little concern with one of the conditions in respect to the native trees. I've looked at the condition now, and I just think there's a little bit of wiggle room in that particular condition by talking about maximising the use of native plant species. And also I heard the architect just talk about prioritising. Both those words allow you to put non-native species in there. So I would, by preference, because we've had a problem in this borough with Japanese ornamental trees being utilised, nothing against. It's not good for our borough where they have been used. They've not been good for the trees, and it's not been good for the environment. So I think we need to just toughen up that condition to say that it will only use native plant species. And then to be honest, I'm absolutely for this anyway. But let's please toughen up that condition.
Ms. Lyons. Does that suit, Councillor Rimmer, if we remove the word maximise?
Yes, yes.
I think we need to perhaps more than remove just one word, but yeah, we'll perhaps you can read out a revised version just before we vote on it. Councillor Aldridge.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Query on the foundation. With the existing buildings and the subsidence the beams are in there, and it's happened to twice, are the new plans for the new buildings with much deeper and more substantial foundations to avoid this in the future?
Do we have an answer on that? I would imagine that they probably would, as it's a higher building as well. Could you turn your microphone off a minute?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor Morris, that's a matter for building control and not a matter for the local planning authority. So that would be dealt with at the building control. So the next stage of the scheme, they would deal with construction methods. So that sits outside what we deal with.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to speak? I personally think that the building is a lot nicer than the one that's on site. I'm not sure about the extra height, but of course if it gives us extra extra places for people to live, then I think I can live with that that 5-storey element of it. So I will be voting in favour of the application. Does anyone else wish to speak before we put this to the vote? Okay. Ms Lyons, would you like to sort of give us a slight, or Mr Gill's going to give us a slightly revised wording for condition 12?
Let's say there's a couple of words changed. The landscape scheme referred to in condition number 10 shall seek to only use native plant species. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, folks, then with that condition revised, I'm going to put the recommendation to you, which says that planning application number 23/01130/full be granted conditional planning permission subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision notice. And the conditions are from pages 171 through to page 181. Can I have a show of hands in favour of that recommendation, please? Thank you very much. That's everyone. Lovely. And that, I believe, is the last item for tonight. So I will wish you all a safe journey home and see you all again in a fortnight.